Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Zamchat podcast. Today we're having an interesting episode with, I think I can say, one of the great sons of the soil of the pharmacy profession. He is the proprietor of Sylkay group of companies. He is the former president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Zambia. He is also a pharmaceutical consultant, a pharmacist as well, a father and a husband. So welcome to this podcast, Mr. Kennedy Saini.
Thank you, Mr. Kanema. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much also for inviting us into your house. I think before this episode starts, I think I want to say something. I think that I see which is mostly lacking in terms of us as Zambians, and also I think in our profession as pharmacy. I want to give you your flowers. I want to appreciate you as a pharmacist myself. I want to give you your flowers, I think, for what you have done in the pharmacy profession as a PSZ president, and also most importantly as well as a business person. And if ever you ever felt like giving up, even for a second, I want to let you know that there are people like us who look up to you and who look up to what you are doing. So I thought I should be able to give you those flowers.
Thank you very much, comrade, and I'm happy to hear that, because it means a lot, and I feel humbled, and it is because of the support of each and every member of the profession that we achieve even the little things that we are able to achieve. So we just need to continue working together.
Sure. So to kick off our conversation, what is your normal day like, say, as running Sylkay group, for instance, and also perhaps the time that you were PSZ president? How was your normal day like? Because I'm sure it was quite heavy and busy and hectic.
Yes, so my day usually starts, I wake up just before 5. I don't remember when I woke up after 5. And pretty much routines, preparations, if there's something to read and look at the schedules. But by 6:20 or 6:10, 6:15, I'm on the road to drop the kids, the school runs.
Yes.
Unless if it is not one of those days. And then, of course, I deal with my schedules, and lunch hour again, picking the kids. So pretty much a family man. Same for evening in case the children are staying. But I plan my day so well that I will know what is most important up to the list, so that at least even if I do not achieve all the set targets, I will have done the high impact things with low input. Yeah, so pretty much that's how my day is.
When we were basically like growing up, I remember, because I grew up from Mwinilunga, and it was, I think, whenever you see someone who has a business, for instance, they're running a business, it was almost viewed as if, it is someone who basically did not have anything. Maybe they would try to do something in life, but then they ended up doing business. It was always like, go to school, you get good grades, and then you start working. Maybe you become a doctor, or you become a lawyer or anything like that. And I think business wasn't so much viewed as an area or a field that someone can be able to go into. For you, I just want to understand what motivated you to go full time into business.
Excellent. I think it was our parents. Mm-hmm. Our parents, the way they brought us up, they taught us 3 fundamental issues, and all of us, we hold, as children, we hold them dear to our hearts. So the first one is really to live right. So within our home, there was no issue of stealing as children. So, and we respected elders. We were pretty much a normal family. So, you have to humble yourself, you have to greet people, and so on. So those values. The second one is business, because from a tender age, I remember the only games we used to play were games like Monopoly and chess, but mostly Monopoly. And it clearly teaches you business from a tender age, how to handle money, how to invest, and so on. And the other aspect was they taught us, as you work hard, maybe farming, you harvest your produce, you find that they will allocate maybe one bag for each child. Once they are sold, of course they'll keep the money, but you will spend that money. You buy whatever you want. So it encourages you to work hard. And finally, they were God-fearing. So they brought us in the Lord. So that was a very important thing. So from then, even when we grew up, we went to high school, we already had that. And by the way, I lost my dad when I was in primary. I lost my mom when I was in secondary.
Wow.
So business again continued. At high school, I used to take pictures
Okay.
at the boarding school and process them in Lusaka. So
Okay. So you're a photographer.
I was already, yes.
As a
And,
cameraman.
yes. And when I came to Ridgeway, they used to call me businessman,
Okay.
because at Ridgeway, I used to sell computers. I used to sell laptops. I used to sell phones. And at that time, technology was just starting. So people used to buy scratch cards from my room. They used to do phone calls. So that, to me, is business. So, and coming from a home where there are no parents, so you had to fill in certain,
To survive,
to
sort
survive,
of.
yes. So from then, I already was a businessman. So when I went into public service, the moment I went to Kasama General Hospital, reported, I already knew what I wanted. And this is why it's important for people to set a vision, especially the young ones.
Yeah.
Do you want to be in manufacturing industry? Do you want to be an entrepreneur like myself? Because if you do not know what you want to be, if you do not have a vision, it becomes a problem. So I told myself, within less than 2 years, I need to own my own business. So after I left, immediately post internship, came to Lusaka in the private sector, where I worked only for about a year. But it was important to work in the private sector for two reasons. One, to get experience, because I needed to have that experience. Coming from the public sector, I needed private sector experience. The second one, which is the most important thing, I needed the money. Where I was coming from, from my family, like you're a breadwinner, so there's nobody who will give you the money. And I can tell you, at that time, there were plenty farmer jobs. It's how you applied yourself. So I had 4 jobs. So I was a manager, pharmacist manager, a water pharmacy. I was a consultant, Maristops International, where I was doing, we used to call it, of course it was a consultancy, but we used to call it, I've forgotten the term anyway. Then I was also a part-time pharmacist at Privin Pharmaceuticals in town, covering pharmacies for the wholesale. But whenever I worked during the day, I would go for another part-time shift in a retail pharmacy in Charleston. So you are talking about 4 jobs. So I would reach home as a bachelor around 22 hours every day. Yeah, but that in itself, made me, raise funds, because it was easier, spending less than you are earning, but with a specific focus of opening my own pharmacy.
Interesting. That's interesting. I think there's some of those points that you've touched already. When it comes to raising children, I think there's that need to start teaching them at an early age, and I think that is something that we need to do. We need to shift. Like I mentioned, for me, I think when I was growing up, it wasn't. I mean, those things were never taught. I think which is the case in most families, and I think we should be able to do that. I just want to find out though, for someone to become, say, a great business person, is it something that they have to start doing when they're early, or even someone who starts maybe say doing business in their 20s or in their 30s can be able to make it as well?
Absolutely. So it's not one hat or one coat fits all size, really. One can start late, one can start early, but what matters is how you apply yourself. For example, when we started the farmer business ourselves, there were very few retail outlets, indigenous owned. We were very few, around 2008, 2009, thereabout. So we did not have mentors. And some of the mistakes that we made in hindsight, for me, I wouldn't have taken that route, and we'll discuss. So even if you started late, if you are able to sit with somebody who has gone ahead of you,
Yes.
it will cut, that learning curve, that process of going through, those hurdles, because they'll be able to tell you the do's and the don'ts. We didn't have that. Secondly, most businesses, start without a plan. For me, luckily, I did not do that. What I did not have is the resources, but I had made a business plan maybe a year before I opened my first business. And what I was doing was just refining it and looking for resources. So without that, it's a problem. And it doesn't matter how long you have been in business. If you do not have a plan, you don't have a strategic plan, how are you going to measure your target? How are you going to project? How are you going to evaluate? So these are some of the critical issues. So somebody can start late and yet do better than that one who has been already in the system and not doing it correctly. But there are always benefits in inculcating these values from a tender age. And I usually, try to analyze, had we lived longer, with the kind of parents we had, really we could have achieved so much, because it was just a short period of time, and yet we learned so much, So beginning at an early stage is better. That, like they say, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. That's Proverbs 22 verse 6. Works well, but doesn't mean if you start late, then you can't do it well. In fact, you can even do it better, because now if you get the right knowledge, and then you apply the best principles, something that works, you get it.
Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned you started farmer business as far as 2008, 2009, somewhere there. How would you say the journey has been because now we're looking at over 20 years into the industry and the experience that you have? How would you say the journey has been 20 years, over 20 years down the line?
Brilliant. So, early enough, when we started, it was more or less honky-dory. What we did not have then were the resources. So even if we had built up some resources, but it was not optimal. So you could have clients coming in, they want the products are in town, and yet you do not have them. So you had to be clever. You order according to the needs. So as they are coming, you look at the needs, and then you're ordering almost on a daily basis because of the quantities. So that was the biggest issue, but the competition was not much. For example, if I talk about Chawama, when we opened our first outlet, we were the only registered pharmacy there in Chawama. The whole stretch up to Jackie. Of course, there were illegal outlets. Yeah. If you drive to Chawama today, you will find maybe 20 registered pharmacies within the same space. Yes.
Yeah, there's quite a lot.
So that was the issue then. The other issue that was there was really there was no much of technology. The technology that was there, if you want to use point of sale or whatever, it was too basic. Yeah, too basic. Then also the industry, they did not trust a lot of us as Zambians. Even for you to get products on terms, it was not easy.
It was not easy.
Maybe some of our seniors did not have a very good relationship. So we had to go in there like on your own, you know, and swim. It was rough in that area, but less competition. Then I remember also what was there? Yeah, too many drugstores. So where even if you want to do a professional job and they are following all the regulatory requirements, and yet next door somebody's busy cutting corners. So we have had our ups and downs. So I'll just give one of the examples. You know, when we ventured into now the wholesale business, farmer business, we started on a very good note, and we had clients coming on, and then we had the downturn in terms of the kwacha dollar, you know, exchange rate.
Yes.
It really went down within a very, very short period of time, in a matter of hours and days, where now the value of the products, something else. And can you imagine the normal business in pharma industry is that you give out goods with terms for about 30 days or more in order to receive the payment. Now, if you are not an importer, because at that time we are not importing ourselves, it means that the supplier will just increase the price, and people have no choice because they are the ones who are importing. Us in the middle, we need to chase the payment, which payments may not come on time because they are also under pressure because of the dollar, everything. But even if it comes, let's say bending for flu, I'll give you an example. Yes. If I ordered it at 20 kwacha, right? Even if my client pays me the 20 kwacha and delays, in fact, to pay, but pays me the 20 kwacha, you find that for me to reorder the Benlin, it will not be 20. The prices went to actually double. So now I'm supposed to reorder at 40 kwacha, something that I collected the payment for 20 kwacha. So meaning at the time of ordering, it was less than 20 kwacha because I even calculated my markup in the 20. So it was terrible. So we more or less closed down, focused on the collections, and the goods we had, we put them in our retails just to try and mitigate. But to cut the story short, that is what opened our minds to say, look, let's start registering our own products, so that even if you have these challenges, you can be able to survive. And also, it opens our eyes to look at the rainy days. It's not always that it will be sunny. So in business, you have to look at the risks. So those are some of the challenges. Otherwise, we made huge losses. And it's possible for a company at that stage where we were to go under. We just survived.
And I think it's so interesting that you've spoken about, some of the challenges that you face. And in most cases, people, when they look at a business, they always think as if maybe everything is always rosy, everything is always going very well. And I think you touched on something that is interesting regarding, let's say, finances. Say for a person or a young person who wants to venture into retail pharmacy business, because obviously the costs now are so high. What are some of the things that they should be able to look at, for instance, to try and be able to address these challenges?
Brilliant. So the first one is for them to have a plan. A business plan really prepares someone to know how to structure the business, how to run it, and also how are they going to monitor. That is very, very important, very crucial, especially for a startup, because it will be more or less like a guide, more or less like a Bible for the business. So any startup needs to have that. And for those who are having challenges, there are a lot of people who can help you with a draft business plan, even for free,
yes,
including myself, just to push you ahead. Without that, there are a lot of challenges that will come. So that's number one. Number two, for a startup, they should not. So finance is crucial. A startup should not rely on a loan, for example.
What should they rely on?
Yes, so they should raise capital. It could be from families, it could be end capital, could be wherever, but not money that will require them to pay back in a short period of time or pay back with interest. So if an uncle can give you a good amount, interest free, and say, I'll need it after 2 years or 3 years, those are the fundings I'm talking about. Why? Because people go into business and think that they will make a profit immediately. No. There's what you call the break-even point. Break-even point means that, because when you start, you realize that clients are coming in. Because you're a new place, they'll say, wow, this is a beautiful place. This is a pharmacy. Oh, okay, we'll come. Another one comes. So the sales are really low, but you have to pay your salaries, not the fixed costs. You have to pay your rentals and so on. Meaning that if you're not careful, you're eating into the capital.
Yeah, sometimes even into your own.
Yes. So you need to understand that unless you are buying a business which is already operating, because you'll not make a loss even for a day if it's a good business. But for a new business, a startup, you need to know that. So me, I usually give myself 6 months. In that 6 months, either I'm looking for salaries from somewhere else, even the rentals, I don't touch that which I've invested in for that 6 months. But before the 6 months ends, I will have reached what I talked about, the break-even point.
Yes.
It means now, because whatever I sell, I'm just reordering according to the needs. I'm just reordering. But once I reach the break-even point, it means that the shop itself is able to pay salaries. Then the fixed cost is able to run, the sundries, all those expenses. But I'm not making a profit. It's okay. And BEP is different. In a highly a costly area, it can be high. Maybe 10,000 sales per day. In a low area, it can be as low as 1,500. So if I have met that minimum target, whether it's 2,000 or 1,500, then I'll say, whew. Why? Because my shop itself will pay the guards, to pay the water bills, and so on. Now, from then on, it becomes interesting. Because now, it means whatever you're going to earn, further than that, is profit. So finance is very, very important. Most people get it wrong and they get frustrated because the expectations and the reality are not matching. Because they want to pay from the same sales and yet it's not good. And once a stock begins going down, that is a sign of business mortality. And most of the businesses fail within 1 to 2 years for the same reason. And this is why most of the lenders will not even lend to startups. Because of this risk. So that's number 2. Number 3 is that you need to operate with a plan in terms of operational efficiency. And you need to bring in technology. How do you monitor, for example, inventory? So most miss it there because
most people tend to just use the books.
Yes. How do you account for there's pilferage and so on? So technology for me, I don't compromise. I will have CCTV cameras. They will be matched with the point of sale. If I want to see anything and to review on a particular day, it has to be matched. It has to be on my phone. It has to be on my computer. I should check. Another person who is free and the senior should also be checking when I'm busy. So technology is very, very important. And it makes job easy because if a client comes, just swipe. Can you imagine if ShopRite was writing everything and then you start So it allows you to balance. If you want to do reports, it's easy. So technology. The other issue that startups miss is human resource. Human resource is important. It can either make or break a company. So you find that some people employ people because they are friends, because they are relatives. No. The basis for employment should be competence. If somebody is competent and they are adding value, that is the best thing. And for us, we do not compromise recruitment. We would either do it ourselves as directors or assisted by somebody very senior within the organization. Why? Because we want to keep and maintain the right talent. And that is why most of the business have what is called staff turnover. Somebody starts working today and they go.
Yes. Which is very common as well in retail.
In retail, yes.
Yeah.
And there's no harm in somebody going. Maybe they've found something very exciting, but let them not go because they are frustrated. Maybe they're operating without contracts. There are no clear policies. This is what we miss. So these are some of the things. So even for a startup, it's better to do all those things. They can be drawn. Sometimes you just hire a consultant. You pay one-off small amounts to give you all these policies and procedures, because you have just paid once, but you are just filling in the names and changing according to your needs than not having anything. So this is very, very important. I find that a well-established company does not even have serious payroll system. They don't produce pay slips. If somebody is leaving today, how are they going to calculate the leave days, how long they have worked? So these are some of the things. So for the startup, they may not tick all the boxes because it is costly, but they need to understand what is it that is crucial, like the barest minimum. Because certain costs, for example, technology, will be seen to be expensive, but it's one-off, and in the long run, it will serve you better and it will add more value, especially when you talk about avoiding expiries, if it has that provision, but also end-to-end stock visibility and tracking, so that you are sure that products are not being stolen. So these are some of the things that the startups needs to look at. But also, they need to look at a mentor. Anybody who can guide them at no fee or has the time. There are a lot within the profession. Now,
I'm surely coming to you for mentorship.
It will cut off, that waiting time. And we have a lot of mentors within the profession, senior members and those who have run pharmacies maybe 4 or 5 years also, who are ready to share that knowledge. So those are some of the things for the startup. They may not be the only ones, but they are the ones that are very, very crucial.
Okay. Speaking of, I think some of one thing that you touched on, where in Chawama, when you opened your pharmacy there, it was basically like the only one. But now you find that there's a lot of pharmacies. Even when you look at Lusaka, there's a lot of pharmacies. Almost any corner that you go to is a pharmacy that has opened up there. Would you say that is making business difficult in terms of competitiveness, or it's okay, the market is big enough, everyone can be able to have a chunk?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think that pharmacy business is professional business. I think that what would differentiate between pharmacy A and pharmacy B is what we call value. It is value that will make a mother drive from Makeni to Kabwata, leaving all those pharmacies. I'll give an example. Our late senior member, Mr. James from Jubilee. You had people coming all the way, others even standing in a queue. There might be 1 or 2 other pharmacies there, but they said, no, we want to see him. So people should be able to understand that you are not just interested about their money, but you care for their health. So here in Zambia, the competition laws are quite stiff. You can't wake up and say, don't open. There are some places where they will say, in 200 meters, 500 meters, there will only be one pharmacy. Unless in a CBD, like it is in town, because people are coming from different places. But in a community pharmacy, they will say, no, we don't need so many of these. Even in a shopping mall, they will say, only one pharmacy per mall. But here, you find that there can be 2, 3, 4 pharmacies within. Now, what you need to understand is that you have more or less the same catchment area.
Yes.
But what will differentiate, what is the value you are giving? What is the value proposition? Is it a price? Are you operating more hours than others? So you have to be innovative, and you don't have to be complacent. You saw the Nokia, for example, how it was kicked out of the market. It's the same thing. So at the center of it is professionalism. And also, if you have a lot of these pharmacies coming up, it may not be a bad thing. 1, the population is growing. 2, disease burden, is also growing. But it's also a benefit to the customer, because the consumer now has choices. Instead of monopolizing, they'll decide where to buy. Yeah. So, but it also has a threat, a downside, like you are saying, where now, because you are dealing with few people, and with a lot of the same market, but a lot of players, you realize that others can even start cutting corners.
Yes.
because they are not seeing the clients. So those are some of the downsides.
Now this is very interesting. Why? Ndelo mpaka wa memes. I hope people are taking notes right now because so interesting. There's a number of people, I would say for instance, as Zambians, that they say retail pharmacies that are run and owned by Zambians do not perform very well. For instance, maybe as compared to retail pharmacies that are owned and run by our counterparts, let's say from India or anything like that. Would you say that is true?
That is very false. You see, and now people should be proud that in the recent past we have seen a lot of quality, standard pharmacies.
Yes.
I'm just coming from the Copper Belt. Last weekend I was there, and I'll be going there again. You will like it. Within town there was no pharmacy owned by Zambians, but most of our colleagues have opened quality pharmacies. But even here in Lusaka, you saw that Zambians did not have pharmacies even on the shopping malls. Look at the standard and the quality of those pharmacies. We need to be proud. But I can tell you two things to answer your questions. Firstly, it doesn't matter the ethnicity. I think most of these war-run pharmacies, even if it's Zambian origin or whatever, are for pharmacists. I may not mention, but look at these bigger shopping malls. Almost all of them find that the owner is a pharmacist. Even in town, some of these pharmacists you can talk about who are not really, but they are pharmacists. So that's number one. We need to be proud, because as a profession, it means the professionals are taking up the role. But sooner or later, we are going to have a lot of indigenous Zambians opening. Why? Because people like us have actually dedicated our time and efforts to bring up fellow Zambians. Most people may not say anything because people like concentrating on the other downside, but others will share with you this journey. Why? Because if I pull you up, I'm basically pulling myself up. Because in one way or the other, we work together and we'll resolve issues together. So a lot others are doing the same. So, and secondly, because of the localized training in pharmacy, most pharmacists are opening their eyes and saying, oh, we can do this. After all, this is our profession. So that narrative could have been said a few years ago, and when we started, like, we are breaking those barriers, but now it's no longer the case. There are a lot of pharmacies that are doing very, very well, and the biggest difference we had at that time is that our colleagues had an edge, they started the area, and they had the finances. So financial muscle really matters, because even if you are not knowledgeable in a particular field, you can employ others.
Yes.
But you, if you do not have the money, but you are knowledgeable, you cannot open. Now those who are knowledgeable without money are beginning to have money, and so the situation will change. I can assure you, if we work together, you'll find that within 5 to 10 years it will be different.
Interesting. What are some of the, say what you can say, the do's and don'ts when it comes to retail pharma business? To say, okay, this, don't do this, for maybe somebody who's, I think I know you touched on a couple of things, but what would you say are some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to running a pharma business?
Okay, so the first do is regulatory compliance. It's important to comply with the laws, whether it's to do with the business laws within the country, the PACRA laws, but also the regulators. It's ZAMRA, HPCZ, you need to comply. The other ones, ZRA, all these, workers' compensation, NAPSA, you need to comply. That's number one, because it's a huge risk as you operate. So, secondly, is that you have to really focus on the customer. You know, most people fail to understand that without a customer, there's no business. So the do is that you are doing it for the customer. The other one is you can offer value-added services. You can sell airtime. as long as it's not in conflict with the business. So you have to be clever. Secondly, do empower your team. You really need to take care of your team, train them, and you need to be doing the CPD. We do those ourselves very regularly, and you don't have to do it yourself as an employer. You can be bringing in other experts, whether it's customer service and so on. It's very, very important because it has an impact on the business, overall business. Because if you take care of the staff, they'll take care of the customers. The other point is really to prioritize the safety of the customers, because remember, and it's part of also customer service. Remember, ours is a unique business, and you don't have to go for profit at the expense of
Customer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do no harm, and beneficence as well. Give something that will be beneficial. But also, feedback is important. You need to have a very good feedback mechanisms and conflict resolution. If a person is complaining, it means that maybe if you have 3 people out of 10 complaining, just know that 7 are not happy. It can be anything. It can be the price. It can be maybe the cashiers are rude or whatever. And if you are not paying attention to that, you go under, because the customer, remember I said, is important. And how do you escalate these problems? Because I've seen situations where a very small issue even goes to court. By the time the directors are knowing, a simple thing that would have been resolved over a 20 kwacha or over a word, a battle of egos, you're already in court and it becomes too late. So you need to have that structure. So those are some of the do's. The don'ts, like I said, you don't employ people for the sake of anything because it's a relative or whatever. That's a problem. The other don't is that being careless in terms of inventory. If there's no inventory management, whichever way you are assessing, you are gone. That includes cash. The people handling cash. Have you seen the other colleagues you mentioned, the other side? They will either sit on the till, yes, or the spouse will sit on the till, or the child, or somebody they really trust, because they understand that money has no legs. It doesn't move. It is moved by people.
By people.
But for us, we are so comfortable and we think we are so big that we can't sit on the till. If I tell you a small story, in the first business we started in 2008, my wife was on the till every day. Even if you sell 200 kwacha, 300 kwacha on the till, that way it gives you the experience. You are able to even respond quickly to customer demands and complaints because you are there, hands-on. It becomes difficult for somebody to cheat you, even when you stepped out and given somebody the same role, because you know what really happens. But for us, we mostly feel we are too big to do certain things. So be careful with who you put to do with finances. Then the other one is not to cut corners at whatever cost. Whether business has come low, ABCD, don't cut corners. Because in health, that can have serious repercussions. Then the other thing, the don'ts, is that do not think that you can do everything as a business. That is why it's important to refer either to the next level of care. It's not everything that you can do, and you lose nothing. So handle the things you can handle professionally within your limits. And the other don't is that don't underrate relationships. Because in business, there is collaboration between the suppliers, the customers, and so on. So if you build a good relationship, you can be able to walk into any place, be able to get the goods even if you have no money. Why? Because of the relationship. You have to respect that. So those are some of the things that are very, very important. And the last one is that do not resist change. If it is the digital platforms, even digital advertising, we know that the pharmacy is a professional business, but there's a way in which you can promote. What about your brand? Do you still want to look like you're in Stone Age? How do you package your products? How do you dress professionally? Do you have a website? Social media pages, and so on. Are you giving information? to the clients free information. That again is important because it sets you apart. That you are not just making the money, but you are also sharing the community. Furthermore, you might want to do much more beyond just the business. Within your community, out of your little earnings, what is it that you're doing to make a difference? So those are some of the things that can be done as do's and don'ts.
As we try to wrap this up, for Sylkay group of companies, what does the future look like? I think now that you've clocked, I think over 20 years and looking at the future, what does the future look like?
The future is very bright. I'm quite scared.
Big plans.
Yes, yes, especially that now I am free and putting my efforts, all my efforts into this little baby. So we are at a point of change. So we are developing a new strategic plan, which should be ready within a month. And with that, we will focus much more on technology. So we will integrate technology in most of the things that we do. You will see a lot of things changing. We are using point of sale system and so on, but it will be a whole different experience, even for the user. How you make the payment, how you do ABCD. So that for us is very, very important. And also we are going to enhance our operations. We invest more in our personnel, and we are going to grow. So for us, that is what we are looking at, and also to enhance professionalism. Yes, so we have a lot of plans moving forward.
Before I get your last remarks, would you say, there are times when I think for someone maybe who goes into business, maybe they think you can run business as a part-time. Maybe if you have a full-time job somewhere, but then you have a side hustle. Would you say it's possible for you to really make it big in business if, say, you have a full-time job and then you're running business as a part-time, or it's advisable for someone to be full-time in business?
Thank you so much. So the answer is it's advisable to be full-time in business, but it does not mean that somebody who is running part-time cannot do it well. In fact, what we are working on now at Sylkay is to build the leadership and governance structures and capacity within our organization. As you are aware, each of the pharmacies, for example, has its own pharmacy managers, but in the past, they may have had less roles, where even if I'm not around, but I want to do most of the things. I think that's a problem I've had for a very, very long time. But now we are moving to a system where we are empowering these pharmacy managers to make the decisions. So one, we give them the authority, we devolve the power. Two, we resource them, we give them the resources. Three, because now they have been empowered to even be the ones doing the assessment for all the staff members. And all the staff members are reporting to them directly. What does that mean? It means that even if I'm not there every day or every minute, there's this layer, and they have to be accountable. But in the past, when you want to control everything, and everything again falls on you. So for me, somebody can run it, even if they are not even in the same town, as long as the leadership and governance structure is very solid. And each and every staff member has a contract, has a performance contract, and appraisal. Because then they will know that their continued employment is based on certain benchmarks. That also goes for promotion. You will not just promote anyhow. It has to be. So you are more concerned about the outputs and the targets than merely the hours, put in. So that the way I can answer that one is that you can even be there full time, but if you do not have serious systems, you can't sit all the time. The moment you step out, chaos. In the other way is that even if you are not there, you find that there is order. People would think the one running a pharmacy is actually the owner. Yes. When in fact they are just employed. Why? Because if they say something, there's authority. Everybody will listen to them. They will jump and work as if it's the owner. So give them the respect, give them the space. I think that we have started this in the past few months, and it has shown tremendous, difference, a huge impact. So to answer that question, either can work. It will be better you do your for yourself, but as the business grows, you find that you may not have one branch. You can't sit everywhere. So you just really have to work on the leadership and governance.
Well, it has been an interesting conversation. Any closing remarks that you have, or maybe perhaps something that I've not asked, a question that we've not asked, or maybe Bright, do you have anything else to say?
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think I can talk about, as I conclude, somebody who is really thinking about venturing into pharma business. So pharmapreneurship, because people will always get sick, and everybody has space. So what is important is to do the homework, prepare adequately, and go into it. And within the first stage, like I said, more or less summarizing, really is to be ready and to know that it will not be honky dory, and to take challenges as they come, live and day at a time, and your main interest should be growth. If you are selling 200 kwacha on average today, let next month let it be 300, 400, like that. Because if you have an upward trajectory, then you are getting somewhere. So you should be able to compete with yourselves, and looking at the figures, let the figures speak. So for me, that is what will be important. So let people venture into this, and if we can have more of our own, doing well, we find that the resources will be retained here, and we will develop our country.
Indeed. Well, there you've had it. I was having a conversation with Mr. Kennedy Saini, who is the proprietor of Sylkay group of companies. My name is Joe Kanema, the podcast junkie, and I have Bright, the guy behind the camera, Bright Mulenga. Until next time, bye.